Joseon.
Joseon. Morning.
Eddie Cheng is Special Representative from Hong Kong Economic and Trade Affairs to the European Union. Mr. Cheng has had decades of experience in economic relations and financial services from the government sector. Next, I will invite Mr. Heriberto Saldivar. He is the Managing Director of Brink.
Thank you.
Managing Director of Brink Accelerator. And he gives supports and fundings to what you guys call game changers. And these are highly driven entrepreneurs focusing on global impact. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Mr. Oscar Ramos that will be connecting online from Shanghai. Hello, Oscar. Oscar is an entrepreneur turned investor. He is the partner and managing director of China Accelerator. And China Accelerator is a cross-border internet arm of venture capital fund SOSV. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So, shall we get
Hi,
started?
Cecilia.
Hello, Oscar. Okay, there's so much to cover about this potential opportunity, so let's just jump right in. I will throw some questions around, and if you have any thoughts, welcome to chime in. So one of the first questions I want to ask is, coming from the West, and especially entrepreneurs and startups from this part of the world, what opportunities should they be aware of, looking into China?
Okay, then who go first? Well, maybe I will just give an overview, and then other experts can supplement. I'm from Hong Kong, and I represent the Hong Kong government. And as you know, Hong Kong is a very small city, but it is a big, big international financial center. So when you are talking about opportunities, if you are talking about a market, Hong Kong is the gateway to China. Yeah. It is very easy to travel from Hong Kong into the mainland Chinese continent. And in terms of financing, I would tell you, they are full of funding opportunities in Hong Kong. In addition to venture capitalists, we also have private equities and also family offices. They are all important sources of financing for startups. And in terms of partners, we have top universities in Hong Kong. He will tell you more about the Polytechnic University in Hong Kong. It has cutting-edge technologies in making robotics. So, and also I would like to supplement that in terms of biotechnology, Hong Kong is actually the second largest capital raising center for biotechnological companies, just after New York. And very last, if you come to Hong Kong, you don't need to learn the Chinese or Cantonese. You can speak English. And we offer very, very delicious dim sum, which is similar to Spanish tapas.
Excellent. I don't think we need more, enticement, to bring people to China and Hong Kong. So, what from your perspective as an accelerator, and also Oscar, how does that apply?
Yeah. So, just what we're discussing with Eddie, yes, you can only just learn one word in Hong Kong, "Ngoi," that it means for thank you very much, sorry, everything, and you can survive. Hong Kong and Asia, it's a market that it is being growing. WeBrink started at Hong Kong, and it has been an amazing platform for us to grow. The support that you get from the government, the institutions, and also the ease of connection that, right now with COVID, the whole world is a little bit stuck, but the ease of connection that you get with different markets is incredible. It's also important to know that Asia, it's a market that has been growing. It has the biggest middle class that it is growing in the world, a lot of consumer power. They're crazy about food, about technology, about fashion. So there's a lot of things that you can do. There's a joke that it is like, if you're able to sell just $1 product to all of the Chinese, you become a billionaire right away, right? So it's a big market that you have a lot of potential. Hong Kong has been a great place for us to kind of test the market. It is international enough, and it has enough consumer power to be able to grow this as a startup, to test the market, grow, and be able to kind of become familiar with Asia without being scared about the language and everything. I don't know if Oscar also wants to share something. I know he's in Shanghai. Oscar?
Yeah. So we are kind of as SOSB as an organization, we're actually very actively investing. So for us, when we talk about opportunities or area of investment or investment thesis is basically innovation arbitrage. We work a lot between regions where we see a strong demand and a supply that sometimes is not able to catch up with that demand. And these kind of arbitrage opportunities, specifically on this Asia to Europe, is something that I believe is extremely overlooked by a lot of European startups. I think there's an element of lack of knowledge. When I moved to Asia 14 years ago, I thought about Asia as a region. And when you come here and you start evaluating things, you realize that well, that doesn't exist. Like the reality of China, India, Southeast Asia is very different. No? And even if you look at you think about Southeast Asia, I mean, the situation in the Philippines and Indonesia is so different. But the truth is that there's this image that became very popular a long time ago, where there was a small circle only taking a part of Asia, saying, well, there's more people living inside that circle than in the rest of the world. So one of the reasons is that there's a huge market here, and as Humberto was saying, there is a massive growth of the disposable income that these people have, this population have. And what makes them super interesting, what makes this super interesting and super exciting, this region, is that the pace of digitalization is extremely fast. In China, we saw how the adoption of technology basically skipped one generation. People move from people that don't have any access to telephone or transportation, they move from nothing to smartphone to electric vehicles, and you can see that in the digitalization of e-commerce and everything. These models have expanded across Southeast Asia and other regions, and that's a massive opportunity. Difficult because it's very competitive, but it's a great opportunity. Personally, where most of my investments in European startups that have explored Southeast Asia, multiple markets, India, or China, they have focused on the B2B space. Europe has a very strong scientific background. There's very strong technology in Europe. And a lot of that technology has the opportunity to bring productivity and efficiency to markets that are growing really fast, where everything becomes very, very, very competitive. And sometimes that demand is not matched domestically. So that's an area where sometimes, especially in certain industries, when European entrepreneurs they think about their internationalization beyond Europe, and they look at a single large market, they explore the US as a more natural market. But if you want to work in manufacturing today, ignoring China, ignoring Indonesia, ignoring India is crazy. If you think about the challenges in supply chain and certain industries, this is where you have not only the largest volume of activity, it's where you have all the innovation happening. Multinationals from all over the world, they are already realizing that. So we work with multiple, like over 200 multinationals, Fortune 500, and they are shifting very fast their innovation centers and excellence of centers where they try to find new opportunities to this part of the world, because this is where the challenge is happening.
That's a very interesting take. I would like to
Can I add
know.
something to that?
Absolutely, please.
So one other part that he was talking is like Europe has a very strong technical background, a lot of science, and it's been a lot of heavy in research, right? The way I see the world, especially in the startup world, it is like America has a lot of money that they buy a lot, that you can see hyper hyped startups coming up with huge valuations. Asia has a lot of population, right? The population boom that they have, it's incredible. And Europe has a lot of talent. The oldest universities in the world are here, incredible research centers. You can see the guys who map the DNA are here in France. You get the Max Planck Institute. The guys who invented the vaccine for COVID are also actually in Germany. So there's a lot of technology there and a lot of knowledge in Europe that can be working together with Asia, right? This bridge, that's something that we at Brink always have been aiming to work at. We understand that Asia has its strengths, but it also has its weakness, the same as Europe. Europe has a declining population, has some challenges that in order, if you want to kind of like boost your company and your economy, you can take advantage of Asia. And now, like with the support of people like Invest Hong Kong, that's something that we can be able to do. I'm going to do a small promotion here. We at Brink are actually launching a program with Invest Hong Kong and Hong Kong Science and Technology Park for entrepreneurs in Europe who are willing to go to Asia, and we launch it. It's called the HKST Fast Track. So it's a 10 days program that the startups can fly to Hong Kong if they can. Right now, we can also do it virtually. We help them with grants. Hong Kong has an incredible ecosystem for grants. They have a lot of support for the government. And this is just an example. Hong Kong is a microcosmos that it is in Asia. We have seen the same happening in India, in China. We're actually right now working also with China, with the Guangdong government, to be able to do a trade office in Berlin that we're going to be launching later this year or beginning of next one. And these connections between Europe and Asia is something that it needs to be strengthened. I don't want to be very political, but we also see how the world has been starting to shift. We see that Macron, Germany, Merkel is leaving, but they have started to kind of like gravitate a little bit away from America. And then I believe that for Europe, a lot of the future for business, research, and growth, it's in Asia, and it's something that it's worth exploring.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think a lot of the people that are here in the audience as well as online, I think they have one question in mind. You know, how do they even get started? Where do they look? Where do they start? Hong Kong sounds like a stepping stone for many because it's literally a stepping stone in the middle. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs that are looking in breaking into China?
Well, maybe I will start first. Hong Kong have incubators. We have two clusters for tech companies. One is the Cyberport, which is more, focused on IT technologies and software. And then we have the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, which is open to R&D and also innovation, all kinds of innovation. And the best part of that is that the Hong Kong government will also offer, startup financing for them to help them. And we do some matching financing. For example, Hong Kong government will offer $1 to attract $10 from other investors interested in the project. And in terms of, as a stepping stone to the Greater China market as well as the Asian market, it's true. But in addition to that, Hong Kong is also a testing ground. Because Hong Kong is very small, and messages that go around very quickly, very efficient, and most importantly, Hong Kong people and Hong Kong companies, they like technology, very tech savvy. We love things new, innovative, all kinds of gadgets. Let me quote you an example. I don't think you have 5G right here now. Not yet, right?
Not
5G.
yet.
In Hong Kong, we introduced a 5G last April. And now the coverage is 92%.
Oh, wow.
Coverage, 92%. And in terms of coverage, Hong Kong ranked number 1 in the world. And in terms of the stability of a 5G network or the transmission quality, Hong Kong ranked number 2. And in Hong Kong, it's a small place with 7.5 million people, but the subscribers of 5G has already reached 1.5 million. So you can tell people in Hong Kong like technology. If you want to test your idea, Hong Kong is a very, very good market for you to test whether this idea will work for Asians, for Chinese, for Japanese, for Koreans, for all kinds of Asian markets.
That's really interesting.
I will say also there's different programs that you can access to be able to support. I know that the guys in China Accelerator are doing an incredible job with startups trying to arrive to China, especially the Shanghai area. We get also Invest Hong Kong with a lot of accelerator programs. We at Brink have been able to kind of grow to a lot of different emerging markets. We just launched a program in India. We can support a lot of teams who want to go to India and Europe. We're actually launching a program right now in Barcelona that it is mostly focused for European startups, Spanish. It's going to be called Stage 2. We are going to be getting more details, but you can check in stage2.cc. And it is about entrepreneurs who want to be able to develop technologies, deep tech, and everything. And we're going to have a little bit of the support from us from Asia, right? So it's kind of like testing the waters without leaving the home a little bit. Then you can go to other locations, like you can use Hong Kong if you're kind of like a little bit more adventurous. And if you really want to go and deep swim into the ocean, you get programs like the one that you got in China Accelerator. So there's a lot of opportunities. Asia, it's an incredible market, really welcoming. They are hungry for innovation, hungry for this, and that's a lot of things that we can be able to support, right?
Yeah, definitely. There is this
So personally, You
Yes.
know, I want to give a bit of contrarian point of view on this. I think you need to go where your customers are. So there are hubs in Asia, mainly like Hong Kong, Singapore, to a certain degree Shanghai, to where you have a like very large concentration of Fortune 500 companies headquarters in Asia Pacific, and there's a reason for that. They're really great places, but you need to go where your customers are. Those places are very comfortable. And if your customers are there, you can go there. But otherwise, you need to go where your customers are. So when we have been working with companies expanding in India, for example, working very actively in Pakistan, where right now the most active international investor in Pakistan is startups. And a very important lesson learned, you need to really be closer to your customers. Eventually, all of these companies will need to relocate, particularly if you have a pan-Asia strategy. You'll need to decide. And depending on how relevant the mainland China market is for your strategy, you will decide if you choose more like a Hong Kong or Shanghai or Singapore as a hub. But if you want to really develop the market, um, these hubs are too easy. Shanghai is a very easy city. Even from Europe, sometimes it might look as a like complicated for language. Yeah, I mean, as Eddie was saying, you don't need to speak in Chinese or Mandarin to live here. You can live in English. But if you are targeting the Chinese market, you need to go where the market is. If you are working on manufacturing startup, you need to go where the manufacturing lines are. If you're working on any specific industry, like automotive, for example, it's a really big industry here where there's a huge opportunity. Energy, the energy industry in China is massive opportunity for European startups in the climate tech space. You need to go where your clients are, so you can spend time with them. Entrepreneurship is not an easy life. It's a difficult one, and internationalization of startups is even more complicated.
Let me ask something that I'm sure is popping up in the minds of our audience right now. How do you deal with cultural differences, though, when they're spanning across oceans? Where do you even start thinking about these differences?
Well, for us, it's always, you need to have the international flavor, of course, but you are a guest in the country, you need to understand the market. What Oscar was saying is really important. You need to understand your customers, right? An example that I love to talk about it is Red Bull. Red Bull in everywhere in the world, it is a bottle just like this, that it is gray with blue. Everybody knows the typical bottle. But if you go to China, actually Red Bull, it is a yellow, shiny bottle with a big red stuff, right? It is about like the energy and movement. And it is because of how the customers understand. You go, for example, in Hong Kong, you can get some Lays or chips, and they're like salted duck flavor, or you get something. And then you just cross the border to Shenzhen, and it turns out that you get a Sichuan spicy flavor of fries, right? Kentucky Fried Chicken is doing some Beijing duck wrap style of something in China, then you get something different in Hong Kong. So you need to understand that you're entering a market that it has different profiles. A lot of the errors that I see, a lot of startups or even big corporations is coming with like this Eurocentric mindset that it is like, I know how to handle the world, and it doesn't work. You need to understand, you need to listen. Your 100 interviews that you're doing for your market in Europe might not mean anything if you do it in China or in Hong Kong. So like you need to understand how this has happened. You need to have a big tolerance for making a fool out of yourself. You need to understand that some behaviors in certain locations are not good, and you need to kind of like, I always said, like before you go to a place, read about it, right? Something as simple as in China, you don't put the chopsticks on top of the rice because it's a big insult. You don't do some other things in other places, right? So it's important for you to understand and have fun.
Yeah.
And I would like to add that, well, there will be cultural differences in every corner of the world.
That is true.
Turn the difference into an experience. Make it fun. Hong Kong is a very fun, a lot of fun, a happening city. Say, for example, you have mentioned a lot of examples. But I would say that when I grew up in Hong Kong, I was born in Hong Kong. But actually, you know what? My kids are now learning Korean because they are listening to K-pop.
K-pop.
And in Hong Kong, we watch Korean movies. We listen to Korean songs. We listen to Japanese songs. So it's very international. It's like a melting pot, and we welcome different cultures. So I would say, put it simply, cultural difference is not a barrier. It is an experience to have fun.
I agree.
I
So,
mean, this is actually an amazing opportunity. So something that in our work with our companies, we work with a lot of companies on cross-border expansion, like internationalization to other markets. And something that is critical is to understand that to walk on your customer's shoes, the first thing you need to do is you need to take off the ones that you're wearing. And you need to be able to remove all your assumptions. Every single, even a company that has really great traction in one market, when they try to explore the internationalization to another market, they'll need to be able to challenge all their assumptions. And we had like a lot of super interesting cases of companies coming from Europe with a specific technology that they didn't have to change the technology at all, but they had to change the value proposition. So one example is one of our German companies. They are a company in the insurtech space. Basically, have a solution that allowed to evaluate any type of claim on automotive or residential using your phone. You take a picture of the claim, and automatically the AI will analyze the damage and the cost of repairing it. The value proposition in Europe is very simple. You can solve issues that require sending an inspector without sending an inspector. Sometimes it's more expensive to send an inspector than to pay for the claim, but you need to process it. In Asia, in general, that's not a problem because there's no inspectors. You have people that there's no professional inspector reviewing. But the problem in Asia is fraud. There's so much fraud that's a fundamental difference in the value proposition that changes the revenue model. That company today, being a European company, has more profits and more business in Asia because they solve a pain that is critical here. But the technology, the fundamental underlying technology is exactly the same.
could we jump in perhaps a little bit more sensitive topic, talking about fraud? Is that I think a lot of people have concerns about IP issues and having their technologies being copied. What are the state right now in terms of these issues, and is this a real concern even to date?
We work a lot with hardware, and that's a question that a lot of startups come to me and ask me. Depending on where I'm giving this talk, I'm gonna say like, yeah, cool, like Chinese are gonna steal from me the same way that like Spanish are gonna just take a nap in the afternoon every day, and like Mexicans are drug lords. Like I'm Mexican, so it's so it is kind of like a reputation, and is there. There's people who is doing that, but also you need to understand the market. Like what Oscar was saying, like being there in the factory is very important. You need to build a relationship. Asia, it's a lot about the world is guanxi relationship, how you build the trust. I have seen many times that you have assigned a contract and the contract means nothing, it's just a paper. But if you build a relationship with your provider, with your partners, they will go the extra mile and they will get you to where you go. And what I always also believe that it is important, it is like technologies can be copied. We have seen a lot of talent in Asia. There's a very interesting statistic, just the top 1% of students in China by number is bigger than the whole population of students in the United States. So just grabs the idea of how many geniuses are there, right? So if you have an idea, maybe they already can copy it. What you need to be able to be strong about it is your business proposition, your customer support, how you're able to kind of like build relationships, networks, and kind of provide a service that people like. And I think that is something that it is important. You have a lot of IP laws and everything that might be able to do there. China is also evolving. The first generation that were doing business with the West, they were literally people who had a factory and they wanted to make quick money. The second generation, their kids went to universities in China. The third generation, many of the kids went to Harvard and stuff like this. So they understand the market and they want to make a change. So you need to understand where you're standing, build a relationship, and have a strong brand and a strong service because your customers are the ones who are going to hold it, right?
A value proposition.
Yep.
And I'm very glad that you raised this a very, very important question. Hong Kong is itself a member of the World IP Organization, World Intellectual Property Organization. We are not part of, China, but we are a stand-alone member of our WIPO. I study IP law in Hong Kong.
Wow.
And I tell you what, my thesis is about communication rights. Communication rights is that when users use something, from a copyright owner, in Facebook or Instagram platform, how could that kind of right be protected or be facilitating the users to use such right for good cause and non-commercial purposes. Now, I wrote this thesis and I got a distinction for it. Sorry for boosting. And I was comparing Hong Kong's regime with other regimes, including the US regime. And my conclusion is that Hong Kong is no worse than other IP protection regimes in advanced economies. And the professor who gave me an A for my dissertation is from the United States. Okay? Oh. So this is a testimony to the good protection of IP rights in Hong Kong. And related to the IP issue is the independent judiciary in Hong Kong. It's very different from China. In our highest court, similar to the Supreme Court in Canada, in Australia, or even in the UK, in our Supreme Court, we have our Chief Justice there. We also have top judges from Canada, from Australia, and also from the UK, the common law jurisdictions, sitting there to hear cases and disputes, including IP rights or whatever. So you can see that Hong Kong is very different when you go into the legal system. Of course, when there are disputes about IP, actually a lot of them will be resolved via mediation or arbitration because it is just more efficient. And I can tell you that it may not be less expensive, but it's more efficient. You can resolve it through mediation and arbitration. And in Hong Kong, the arbitration and mediation results will be recognized by mainland China. What it means is that it's better to have your legal entity in Hong Kong for the full protection of your IP rights. And if there is a dispute, you can bring the case to Hong Kong, and then the result can apply to China. So that is why Hong Kong is always a very ideal base for entrepreneurs if they are exploring the Chinese market.
Yeah, that's very interesting to find out. Oscar, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the issue with the debate about IP in the startup world sometimes is very biased because we look at the startup world as a small version of the problems that you have in a large company. I think the IP in the startup world only has two situations. It doesn't matter or it's extremely important. We're a very active investor in deep tech companies. And what I mean, it doesn't matter, is like most of the people that care about IP, they should not care about IP because it doesn't matter. If you think about a lot of existing leaders out there in the market, it honestly doesn't matter. Like Facebook, Google, all of these companies, they were not the first ones doing what they're doing. So they were copied. And anything, particularly in China, but increasingly in other parts of Asia, anything that is worth copied is going to be copied. And if you look right now at the like evolution of Facebook and WhatsApp, there's so many things that are being inspired by the models of the models that are more popular in Asia, mostly like the models from WeChat, but also some other alternatives here. So in these cases, I think there's a lot. People spend too much time worrying about it and not running fast enough, because that's the only thing that can keep you ahead. Always iterate and improve faster than everyone else, and be very creative with business models, with distribution channels, and something that gives you an edge. We were talking about deep tech, and we're a very, very active investor in deep tech companies across like biotech, hardware, and even the software element. China needs a lot of this, and I'm saying China because I think when people raises concerns about IP in the world, most of them are actually are in China. China needs that, and sometimes the challenges come from corporates, like potential corporate VCs that might clone what you are doing. And my experience is that Chinese VCs from the corporate world are actually quite sophisticated, and they understand that reputation is something that it takes a long time to build, and you can lose it really fast. So for a small number of deals, losing that opportunity is something that they probably will not consider. My portfolio companies with experience working with multiple VCs are more worried about Amazon than they are about Chinese investors taking some of the IP.
Very interesting indeed. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I can continue this conversation forever. But we will continue on this topic of China. Thank you very much, speakers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
That's it.
We'll talk more.